gonna go ahead and do a quick live stream on LinkedIn. We just figured there's a few security articles out there, and this could be a complete wreck because it's going to be all ad lib. But hopefully, we can get some information out there and just cover sort of the waterfront in terms of what's going on in the security industry, just things that have popped up over the last few weeks that we thought were interesting. So what I wanted to do was sort of cover what's in the feed. I thought this was really interesting, by the way, on ChatGPT. So apparently, a lawyer using ChatGPT is having some legal issues. So I think a lot of this stuff is going to be kind of bubbling up. I think that people are relying on that heavily. And the first thing that kind of came to our attention was this article, very concerning. 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate went missing from Wyoming to California on a train. And what's funny is it says it could have resulted from a leak, but they're not sure. So that is actually just insane, just realizing that that could be a giant
60,000 pounds. And when you think of all the reasons that somebody could have out there for wanting to take, steal ammonium nitrate, it's not valuable as far as dollar wise, but the sheer weight of what they can do with 5,000 pounds. I mean, you saw what they did, 95 in the Oklahoma City bombing. That was only 5,000 pounds. And it's crazy. If that's the reason, if it leaked out, I think you got to take a look at it and how could that have been prevented? What measures or means do they have? And taking a look at this, I saw that there's a lot of different sensors that they have for trains. They have motion sensors, humidity sensors, temperature sensors, tilt sensors. If products are moving inside there, and they have weight sensors, which I didn't know. So I thought that was really interesting. They can be used, just not for just distribution of load, but they can be used to make sure that things are even. Things are where they need to be inside that train car. So if they have something set up like that, you would be able to not have to wait 10 days before you find out that you're missing 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate.
And that's only in 1,000 miles.
Yeah. So how, it's been a couple of weeks now. So how do you not determine where you've dropped that off by this point?
And that's the thing, is a lot of these things will pop up and then those sort of disappear. So we'll probably never know what actually happened on this, but anyway, just completely insane that this just went missing. Just like you said, knowing what's happened in the past and how that could be used by bad guys. Just another thing for security professionals within the United States, at least, with this incident, just being very focused on seeing trucks parked outside of buildings, just left there, anything like that. I would be definitely on alert, especially if it's a high value type of atmosphere.
It makes you think also, a lot of times people are saying, well, I don't have the budget for this. I don't want to spend the money for this because it's only, several thousands of dollars worth of ammonium nitrate. But when you think about the damage that 5,000 pounds did, Oklahoma City is north of $500 million when all is said and done, from insurance claims to rebuilding the buildings to loss of life. I mean, you can't tell me that it wouldn't have been worth it to have some type of sensors, to have some type of safeguards in place if it truly was a leak. There's a lot of theories out there what happened. No one's probably gonna ever know for sure, but when it comes to the finances of the thing, I mean, you got to not just think of how much is this worth, how much should I pay for it, but what's the if this gets out there, what's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. And now it's just up to security professionals to just be on the lookout. And then sort of the next thing that where we're looking at was just sort of this hacking of critical infrastructure. Microsoft put out an alert recently. And I think, just all the way across the board, it seems like there's been a spike on this. And so you have, the cyber side of things, and then you also have just physically people going in and breaching, these substations and other areas. And so there's been a big sort of focus for Wave, and really working with a lot of different manufacturer partners to sort of put all the best type of product solution set out there for layered security. And this has been a big driver for us. And I think, just as we continue to look through all of these different aspects, in fact, we're putting together something right now that's going to be just a way of putting together how physical and cybersecurity are more and more tied together. And this is just a really good sort of way of looking at that. I think, in fact, we had a discussion about that today with a fencing manufacturer. And I think that's going to be a big push moving forward, is just realizing that there's these layers, and that, if you can keep somebody from actually getting in there and getting access, or at least having a paper trail of access, that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, when you take a look at the security that a lot of these places have, it's crazy. The greatest thing that the United States had going for it for the longest time for protection of its critical infrastructure was just ignorance. People just assumed important targets like a nation's infrastructure is going to have top of the line protection. But you take a look, you drive by any of the substations or electrical facilities, water treatment plants. You take a look at the fencing. Like you mentioned, I mean, they're still using fencing that was created 100 plus years ago. And it's not, there's a lot of better options out there, and it's just making sure that they're educated on it, letting them know that, there is an option out there. You don't have to stick to what you've been doing for the last 100 years. There's new technologies, there's things that are emerging when you think of something as simple as chain link fence. There's a lot of options out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think the military's already been doing that for a long time, as you know. If you're securing an area, you're gonna look at all the components that go into it, and of course, electronic security is a big piece of that. But at the end of the day, you have to have a physical barrier that at least will slow someone down considerably. And I want to know what the time is on how long it takes to cut through chain link. So that's actually one of the things I want to look into. But it's probably within under a minute, right, of just cutting that.
Sure.
And going right through. And so, yeah, you can have electronic security on that, and you're going to know maybe, what zone somebody hit. But if their whole goal is just to go in there and do some damage and then bolt out, authorities might not arrive in time to ever catch the guy.
Exactly. Yeah. So the longer it takes them to get through the first perimeter, the more time we're going to have to stop them and get people on the scene.
Yeah, to me, that's a big focus right now, just trying to figure out really the calculus on that. And then the next thing, I saw this, I thought this was interesting. I already saw some other products being delivered, years ago on AI-powered cyber for physical security, and that this would be a bigger and bigger sort of play out there. But if you think about it, this is going to be really the future. Is if it's more powerful than a human being able to patch holes and look at threats within that, this is going to be a big push, I think, within the utility areas and critical infrastructure. So, and of course, we're talking about NERC SIP for another application, and I thought it was really interesting that, again, all these things are sort of dovetailing together, where you have cybersecurity and then physical security, and then all of these things are really become a layered system. But AI is going to become a bigger and bigger component of that. And so if you look at the players, if you do a Google search, you'll find some folks out there that are already really pushing this, and I think it's going to be a big deal for critical infrastructure, especially, but really just any business, because if they're going to use AI to hack a facility, and go through their computer systems, then you're going to have things like this protecting the network, and it's going to sort of counterbalance. But that means there's going to be a ton of companies that are going to be unable to afford probably the technology to do that. Here's another one by IBM. This is worth a read, actually. This is pretty good. So anyway, that's another thing that's sort of on the horizon. But I think I don't know what it is. All of a sudden, everything is pushing very, very quickly on AI. And
Yeah, it was something you heard about and something that people will talk about, and then all of a sudden it's right in your face. It's every other article. It seems to be something regarding AI and what it's going to do for us, or the problem it's going to create for us, or
yeah,
situations we're going to have to handle with it. Yeah, I agree.
so that's probably the next big thing I think for physical security manufacturers is just really understanding, how hardened are their units, especially if they're going to be NERC SIP compliant. I mean, we're looking at intercom stations for substations and the compliance that they have to have for that. So everything has a cybersecurity aspect to it, and things that really never had to worry about that, not even 4 or 5 years ago, are just really really obsessed on their compliance to these things. And the folks that are running critical infrastructure, power stations, things like that, the fines are super heavy if they're not not doing that. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it starts to develop, how they start to actually utilize the AI within their facilities when situations come up. To be able to help them, assist them, and get problems resolved quicker.
there's another thing I wanted to share. I thought this was pretty interesting, Sam. If you just do a Google search on radar for critical infrastructure, this is sort of what you're going to be getting from some of the folks that are out there. And then same thing, I did a Google search for fencing for critical infrastructure, and this is what you're going to be seeing up on there. And the reason I think it's interesting is not necessarily the best solutions are going to be at the top. And I think another gap for a lot of these manufacturers is just really explaining, how are they addressing what does it actually do? I mean, there's probably not a lot that goes into a lot of the materials that they send out there to answer those questions. And I think that's going to be a bigger and bigger challenge for manufacturers, is really showing how it either complies with something, or how does the solution address some of these bigger issues. And then I guess this literally just happened 6 hours ago. There was another drone attack in Russia, or let's see, Moscow hit by drone attack. Yeah. So you and I have been sort of watching this as well. So drone detection, there's quite a few different manufacturers out there in the industry that have been providing this for at least 5 years, maybe longer, since years are going by so quickly here. But this is definitely a big area that's probably going to get more and more attention with, now you're seeing this in the news and headlines, where only people within the physical security industry were really kind of paying attention to that, maybe military.
Yeah, I mean, before the concern would always be, once I get to my perimeter, once I get to my fence line, I need cameras that are going to be able to do, these different functions depending on, what you've programmed them to do. But with the radar, the great thing is, I mean, you can see, something coming, for whether it be, vehicle traffic, whether it be animals, whether it be people on foot, or it's, like you just said, drones. You can see that coming, and gives you plenty of time to actually be able to respond. So just the way, talking about a layered solution, it's the last few years, it's industry's really come around.
Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking about electrical substations. I know we've been looking at that for a while, but if you just sort of peel those back and just say, okay, what are those layers? We talked about a physical fence line, but before you get there, there's got to be sort of a larger area to know what's coming toward the perimeter, because the longer you have in terms of a warning system, the better.
Oh yeah.
And then drones are just sort of that next level, where those things come in fast and from the air, so you have a whole different type of solution to really detect something like that. And then it comes down to mitigation, like what are critical infrastructure sites, like substations, so power companies, what are they going to be allowed to do that companies aren't going to be allowed to normally do? to actually mitigate or take down drones, so they don't hit, critical infrastructure.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be really interesting because right now, a lot of those are just reserved for, government, military, national defense. A lot of these products out there that can actually stop a drone in its tracks. So it'll be interesting to see the more that happens at the critical infrastructures, the more situations the cities and states are having, the more freedom, not freedom, but the more, those regulations will change and relax a little bit to be able to give them more options. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming years.
That's what drives me crazy, though, is it's reactionary. Like, instead of
Yeah.
getting ahead of that and saying, you know what, let's open that up to these different entities to make sure that they can actually have some way of blocking this stuff before it gets there, instead of just waiting for it to happen and then creating a law.
Yeah, unless there's a requirement, unless there's something that's actually, there's a reason that they're required to do it for insurance purposes. It seems like the majority of all of this is reactionary. There's no one going out there and talking about, well, this could happen. It's not, well, it did happen, and now we got to do something about it. And that seems where we've been for so long. So some of these security managers, facility managers, and operation managers that are having the foresight to, they contact us and they want to come out because they're thinking ahead. They're thinking, this is what could happen and this is what we got to do to protect our people and our facilities. So it's nice to see, when that does happen. But yeah, you're right. It's, for the most part, everything's reactionary.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a newer threat, but anyway, that's going to be an area to keep watch on. And I just feel like we could detect it. There's solutions out there that'll do that. We were actually talking to a couple of people about that. And like I said, if there's not a way to really make sure that drone doesn't actually come in and do damage, then detecting it, it's kind of like detecting somebody breaking into the car and grabbing everything and then leaving. You detected it and you videotaped it. So it's nice to be able to have some way of mitigating that. It's like PA, right? Talk down. So somebody coming to a car dealership, hey, you're being videotaped, and it scares them off.
Sure.
Now you've mitigated the damage by putting those two things together. And I think drone detection is great, but there's got to be some sort of way of keeping that drone from actually doing any damage.
Yeah. What do you do too once you detect it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that are, no pun intended, on your radar? Is there anything that you wanted to bring up or take a look at article wise? You can share it if you want.
Yeah, Forbes actually had a really interesting article, talking about why it's a new target, for cybersecurity, for cyber criminals, I should say, why
Yeah,
cybersecurity
and this is going
is
to be
such an important thing.
a growing
And they had a
concern, I think, for a lot of people. Is it talking critical infrastructure as well?
Yeah, it is. One of the things I really thought was interesting, though, we're just talking about the leadership and knowledge gap. So it's really just talking about just the different ways that decisions have to be made. Talking about the specifically the different the way security is structured. Well, let's see right here. The way it's structured within organizations. So when they're talking about the security structure, they're talking about the IT professionals and the OT professionals, which is operational technology. How they're both involved in the security. They're both involved in decisions, but who's responsible for it?
Hmm.
So it's when people are contact different critical infrastructures, whether it be water districts, whether it be power plants, whether it be utilities, whatever it is, making sure they know who's responsible for what, because everybody wants to be able to say they either want to be responsible for it or they don't want to be responsible for it, and making sure that they know what their roles are. So I thought it was really interesting when it was talking about if IT or OT specifically, one of them's taking charge of something, and then they move on or they move out of that position, and then maybe it was the OT guys that were responsible and they've left. Now you're the IT guys who haven't had anything to do with it. That's not the area they deal with. Now they're responsible for it because they're the guys who've been there the longest. And going back to that,
Interesting.
The leadership gap there, the knowledge gap. If we don't have something that the industry standardizes on, as far as this is the role of IT or this is the role of OT.
So yeah, I think the cyber thing connected with physical it's going to be interesting. And then who's going to be responsible? That's going to it's going to be have to a title at some point where
Yeah, I mean, as
those
of right now,
decisions.
facility managers, you know what their roles are for the most part. You know what security managers' roles are for the most part. But while the IT and OT guys, while they're sharing roles and responsibilities, if these guys, from building to building or industry to industry, if we don't narrow it down on who's responsible for what, and then we have guys that are leaving, and you're gonna have guys who are still there saying, no, I don't. That's not my role. I don't know what to do with it. And then it's who's that going to fall on? Who's going to be responsible for that? And who's going to have to deal with something when an incident happens or an attack happens. If you don't have some guys who are responsible, who are certified, who are trained, who are aware of what needs to happen when it needs to happen, then it's more than just a knowledge gap. I mean, then you're looking at loss of lives, or you're looking at areas being shut down until someone gets trained up on it, which could be depending on the industry, it could be catastrophic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And then it's probably going to be the chief security officer, and they'll roll the physical security roles underneath that, I'm sure. But that hasn't happened yet, at least that I've seen. It seems like facilities and security management is still a sort of a separate arm. But yeah, it's an interesting article. I'll have to check that out. So in terms of other things that are on the radar, anything else that's sort of been interesting for you as you've sort of scrolled through and looked at the feeds that are out there?
I think like radar is always exciting. The critical infrastructure is huge, and that's going to encompass a little bit of everything, whether it be video access control, intercom, perimeter protection, and the radar. I think just being able to see how everything ties in together and how it can be utilized. I'm excited to see, for the most part, I'm excited to see how AI is going to come into all that. And you think of all these different software and hardware and how they all integrate and interface and work together. But when you put something in like AI, and it's going to do what it's programmed to do, and then a lot of these, they're self-learning. How is that going to affect what we want it to do? So I'm excited to see how that's gonna come about.
Yeah, I think one of the things I don't know, I think this is a strategic advantage for a lot of the manufacturers, that having a way of explaining sort of the context or the relevance of a product, and hitting how it's actually impacting at the client site, and then how channel partners can help put together a full solution with layered security solutions. That's been probably one of the most exciting things we've been doing for the last I guess it's been 6 months now. So what do you think in terms of manufacturers and products that are out there, like solution wise? What do you think we should be talking about, or what do you think the audiences out there in terms of the end users and channel partners would like to see, or what do you think is going to be sort of the next big thing to talk about and expand on, or who needs maybe more information out there on products?
Well, I think one of the things you have up right there, the power box, when it comes to not just end users, but not just integrators, I should say, but also end users. Everyone's looking for ways to either cut back, save money, reduce the labor costs. And this is a power box. Essentially, you can store the power in there. It charges the battery at night while lights are up. If you're using this out in a like a parking lot structure, we get a lot of that. We hear that just about every single day. We have a parking
Yep.
lot. The lights go down during the day. The power drops, and we have no video footage. So it's having these power boxes connected to the light poles. So at night when the light's on, we're charging those batteries. They don't have to run additional lines out there. They don't have to run additional cables. They don't have to run any poles. They don't have to. All we're doing is mounting, this power box and some battery storage. And that's it. We're not having to spend all this money on having trenching and all this complicated stuff done. So to me, that's just a really simple thing. You see that in stadiums, you see it at churches, you see it at, big box stores, that's just about everywhere that you can think of. And then when it comes to AI, which we keep talking about, there's a conversational AI, called Ivy, that we've talked about before, and it's exciting because it's been utilized a lot overseas, and it's here in America now. We're able to share and push this out there, and you can, again, it's just about anywhere that you would want, whether it be train stations, airplanes, airports, I should say, if you wanted at malls, if you wanted at business parks. You can go up and you can ask, where is you show up to your appointment at the hospital. You're there in the parking lot, and you can ask this, this intercom unit is what it kind of looks like, this interface, and you tell, hey, where's oncology? Where do I go for X-rays? There's 5 different pharmacies at Kaiser. Which one is the one that is in the main building, or where am I going? Where's the bathroom? If there's anything, and it can answer your questions. It's self-learning. So as the more that you ask it, the more that patrons are asking questions, the more that it learns, and the better that it's able to adapt. So
I would assume that people who are responsible for monitoring, if you're taking calls for when someone's hitting a button, and probably 90% of the calls are either false, or they're people just maybe asking the same kind of redundant questions. Where's this or where's that?
Yeah.
So if you could reduce that much before going out and then actually hitting a person, you can think about how that's going to streamline things for them, sort of on the back end. So you look at AI and you look at those type of applications. I was thinking about that even for chat and things that can make it faster or better. Populating information without having to manually do it. That's a big deal. We're looking at robotics as well. So that's probably one of the most exciting things for me is, chatting with manufacturers about, sort of showcasing their products and putting that out here where, more and more people, and it's been all organic growth, is, they want to find out, how does this work? What's the application? And I think, coming from the company themselves, sometimes, just sounds like more of a product pitch. And I think the way we look at stuff and sort of break it down, like, how is this going to benefit on the other side of it? Where's the application? Where's this installed? And how is this going to drive some sort of return on investment or protection? That's going to be meaningful. And I think, everything just gets sort of lost in either product pitches or, sort of another logo out there in the feeds. And so, I think our goal is just to be that sort of independent out there, showing, here's what's out there that can actually benefit this environment. Here's what can benefit maybe a whole solution, and putting these things together. So that's what I'm most excited about. I think going after robotics and, of course, critical infrastructure components, whether it's radar or other sensors or actually physical fencing, I think it's all, super beneficial. And it's not just one product that's going to be a solution. It's going to be all of them. And I think, the more you can put together for, your system integrators who can say, hey, this is great. These are all pretty, very vetted. Here's what they do. And I know I can get support on it. And then on the other side, their customers know, hey, this is going to be a great solution for us because maybe it has, a certification that they need, or maybe that it has an integration that they're going to need. And I think, when it's coming from a manufacturer, sometimes it's just hard to read that as anything but maybe some a product sort of pitch, or maybe an explainer of some sort. But our goal is to expand a little bit on it, but make it short, make it not painful to watch, like what we're probably doing right now.
Well, we also have the benefit of the relationships with the integrators out in the field. We're able to get some real honest feedback from them as well, and we can share that as well. And coming from us versus a manufacturer, it may not be as scripted and as polished as it would come from a manufacturer, but it's honest feedback, and we're able to share that as well.
Yeah, and that's the goal, is sort of put together a playlist that we know, these are great products and they have great results from being installed. And the more we can put together and explain, although we're gonna probably hit a wall at some point in terms of being able to put all these things together and talk about them. So there's probably maybe another 3 or 4 manufacturers that we could have time to actually produce this stuff. It takes a while to do on the other side, but I love it. I love doing it because I feel like there's really nothing else out there that does exactly what we're doing. And it's fun to be able to use a background, in video editing and writing and stuff. And then at the same time, our subject matter expertise in physical security. So it's sort of a best of being able to do that. But yeah, I'm really excited about, video surveillance. I think there are some great things happening there. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but AI is coming into that in a way where analytics have been notorious for having false alarms, and after a while, if the end user is just ignoring the alarms, that's not great. So having AI in there to basically analyze the alarms and sort of vet and bubble up to the user what actually is an alarm, that's kind of next level. So I think that's going to be a growing trend, that and of course cloud is going to continue to grow. But there are so many players out there, and how do you sort of divide the marketing from the reality? And I think that we only want to work with people that provide a really great solution to end users. We're probably pickier than we should be in some ways, but at the same time, I gotta love what we're doing, what we're talking about. And I feel like there are some folks that are out there that are really kind of pushing the next level technology, and as long as they can support their partners and the end user, and have a good sort of game plan on in terms of their future of what their technology is going to offer, roadmap, then that's something that we can get excited about for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think again, this is sort of a first. I just wanted to throw something out there that I thought would be helpful, especially with that one crazy thing in terms of the that train. So throwing some stuff out there that might be helpful for our fellow security professionals. And again, this isn't an ad or an endorsement of what we're doing here, but I figured it'd be kind of interesting to throw something other than a 1 to 2 minute video. So, well, if people have questions, where do they find you, Sam?
Email is the best way to reach me, samuel.hicks@wavereps.com. And you can always shoot me a line there. You find me on LinkedIn with Wave Security as well.
Awesome. Well, cool. I guess we'll wrap it up here. And then if anybody has any questions, please hit us up. And if you have any suggestions on what you would like to see, I'd love to see that. So definitely share any insights or anything that you want to see on the channel, but we'll continue to scan news and anything that we think is kind of interesting to put out there. But everyone have a safe and a great day. Talk to you.
Sounds great. Stay safe.